Hi there, I'm Sune from Cooperate, and last week we talked about what is a good KPI. And in that video I promised you that we would talk about what is good data in another video, and that video is this one. So today we are going to talk about what is good data. Now first of all, the data you need for KPIs needs to be quantitative. This means that it should be a number that you get from that data. Or in other ways, it should be something that could be changed into a number by counting or doing something like that to that data. That means that you cannot have like an interview with a single person or something like that. That is not the data you need for a KPI. Another thing is that it needs to be historical. And that is very important if you want to look at your data over time and you want to see the changes. And often you have to either summarize it, count it, or things like that over a period of time. And that is why it needs to be historical and time-bound. The data also needs to be high quality. And it sounds really obvious, but what we mean by that is that, for instance, let's say that you have a new system that you just set up. That system, you've tested a lot of stuff in that system, and that created a lot of different data timestamps and a lot of things in the system. Now, at a certain point in time, you started to actually use this system in real life. And from there, you get some nice data here. Now, when you create a new KPI for this specific data source, then you want to filter out all the old and useless data. And that's just one example. You might have other data that you know is not correct, and you need to either filter that or remove it completely from the data source before you use it for any KPI. The data also needs to be reliable. So let's have an example. Let's say you run a shop and you want to measure how satisfied your customers are. Now you have one person, you have this guy in the company, and he is going to count the number of smiley faces of people smiling when they get out of the shop. Now, another day you might have another guy who is sitting there counting smiling faces. And if you take these two people and put them side by side and make them count the number of people smiling, then they might come up with different numbers. And this means that the data source here is not reliable, because if you change the person who measures it, then you'll get a different result. And that's not something we want. We want it to be reliable in a sense that you can reproduce the outcome under the same circumstances. Now over here, when the data is reliable, it needs to be valid. So let's take this example from before. You count, you measure the customer satisfaction by counting the number of smiling people. Now, do you know why they're smiling or not? It could just be that they have a bad day. Then that has nothing to do with the experience they get when they go into your shop. Another thing that makes the data invalid, or a way of validating your data, is by comparing the number you get to, like, let's say that you have other shops, then you could compare the results to that. You could also compare it to the industry as a whole. Like if you have shops that are comparable, then compare it to their results. You could also compare it to the same period last year, for instance, to see if this number makes any sense. And that is a way of validating it. Now, one thing you should watch out for is changes. If you either change the way, the process, or if you change the way you use the system or anything like that, then that might actually lead to a difference in the data and hence a difference in the results you see. And you either need to completely skip the data before this change occurred, or explain it in some way that we made this change, we used the system differently, or we removed some of the old data or something like that, so that you will not be misled by the changes made in the system. So those are some of the things that you need to watch out for when setting up some KPIs based on some data. And we hope you liked the video. Please give it a like if you did, and share it with your colleagues. and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.